Frank, let's roll 'em. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Anatomy of an Entrepreneur. We're so happy you came to join us tonight. I'm sure there are a lot of people watching the show. Usually we get tens, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands watching our show. Tonight is a very special show tonight we have on. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to introduce him yet because I have to get to some housekeeping, but we do have a really special guest, Barry Lights, he's a real a pillar in our community here in the Huntington Township. But before I get to that, I need to take care of some housekeeping. The first one is, this show is brought to you by My Instant Office. My Instant Office, if you need a place to go to work with just a desk and a chair and a cubicle, you need a conference room, you need a closed office by the day of the week of the month, come on in, sit down, and get to work. You know what we say, Lori? Just add yourself.
Got that right.
This show is also supported by and sponsored by the Huntington Chamber of Commerce. Lori Kay, did you know that the Huntington Chamber of Commerce is the largest chamber of commerce on Long Island?
I did know that.
How did you know?
Because you say it every Tuesday at 5:35.
Oh. And here's something else. One time I was speaking with the associate director of the chamber, Courtney Bino, and I said, look, I need something to say about the chamber. And she said to say, it's the best darn chamber in the world. And so every week we say that, right?
Yeah.
So my goal on this show, Anatomy of an Entrepreneur, is to help inspire others that virtually anybody can become a successful entrepreneur if you have the right tools, the right guidance, the drive to move ahead. And I believe that just about anybody can do this. I've seen it over and over and over again. The stories that I get from our guests are consistent, and the same common themes happen over and over and over. This week's guest is an attorney who practices in Huntington, but also has an office in Manhattan. He donates his time more than just about anybody I know to various organizations, from the Chamber to Angels of Warriors?
Angels for Warriors.
Angels for Warriors.
Townwide Fund.
Townwide Fund.
Leadership Huntington.
Yeah,
Moon Jumpers.
It didn't stop. And now the rumor has it that you may even be running for office.
It's the next step.
I think that's pretty cool. So without further ado, I want to introduce and welcome Barry Lights.
Thank you. Thanks, Cliff.
I really, really appreciate you being here.
It's
I
a
know
pleasure
how
to be
busy
here.
you are. Because I know when I see you in the chamber, it's kind of like, whoosh, whoosh, right?
Yeah.
You like the wind.
I keep busy.
And you've raised 4 children.
Yes.
On
yes,
top of all
yes,
that.
yes,
And have
that's
2 dogs.
And 2 dogs.
One with a thyroid condition.
Yes, yes. He's getting better, thank goodness.
Barry, you grew up, I think, in the 5 towns.
Yes, I grew up on the South Shore.
Lawrence.
In Lawrence. In Woodmere.
Oh, you grew up in Woodmere?
Woodmere, yes.
But you went to Lawrence High School.
I went to Lawrence High School, and we lived a half a block from the Lawrence Country Club, and so I was a caddy for a number of summers, and that was a lot of fun. It's the last time I played golf, actually. I don't have time for the sport, but grew up on Long Island. I am the youngest of 3 boys, and my parents moved to Long Island for the schools, because I was born in Queens. I was born in St. Albans.
Oh, I know.
I was born in St. Albans, Queens,
sure.
and moved to Woodmere when I was 6. And so we all went to public school, Lawrence High, and I was very active in theater at school, and I from grade school to high school and into college. And I remember when I was almost a senior in high school, because a lot of my friends were in theater, and they were gonna go to Broadway and audition, and I came home and I told my parents, I'm not gonna go to college. I'm gonna go to Broadway and audition. And they said, why don't you go to college, get your degree,
Where'd you go to college?
University of Pennsylvania
Okay.
in Philadelphia, and if after that you still want to do this,
Yeah.
fine. Well, they were very smart because by the time I got to school, second or third year, I had the bug for law, and
Interesting.
and
So I want to talk about that bug because part of entrepreneurialism starts with passion, right? When did you first notice the law?
I had the great opportunity to, a couple of things. I was thinking about law even before going to college,
Oh, really?
and I said, well, you know, let me start with political science as a major. But I had the good fortune of having an advisor who said, Barry, if you want to go to law school, major in what you love and subject to what you love. And one of the things that I loved was Shakespeare. Before we went on the air, I told you that I spent 7 summers in Maine, and one of the things that we did every year was go to the Monmouth Shakespeare Festival, and that's where I got that bug. And I majored in English at Penn, but the law school bug in particular came when I took a course that was taught by A. Leon Higginbotham, Judge A. Leon Higginbotham, who was a District Court of Appeals, basically the level just below the Supreme Court. And he taught a class at Penn, and I was enamored by the person and the subject matter, so much so that I asked if I could work for him in his chambers in downtown Philadelphia, in afternoons and weekends. And I did that, and that's when it stuck. Because he brought me into his chambers, he allowed me to sit in on oral arguments, and I was hooked.
So I have a lot of questions to ask you about that, but were you passionate about theater?
Oh yes,
Were you sad at all to leave it, or were
There's
you?
an element of theater in law. There's an element of theater in law, whether
When
it's
you're a litigator,
whether,
right?
No, I'm somewhat of a litigator in that I go to landlord-tenant court from time to time. But even at the negotiating table, negotiation is an art form. It's engaging. It's doing your homework, figuring out what the other side really wants, getting on the other side of the table in your mind, and really trying to get a win-win, because every successful negotiation is a win-win.
So putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Exactly. So it's an element of theater. It's an element of empathy, and so there's a lot that goes into it. So I mean, I enjoy. I'm a people person,
Right.
and maybe that comes from the theater, but I love engaging with clients, helping them. Figuring out what their issue is, and sometimes they don't even know what their issue is. They think they have a problem, but don't really know exactly what the core of it is. So
Right.
that's fun.
Okay, so you got the bug, but you really liked it, but there was somebody there who was almost like a catalyst.
Yeah.
That kind of like.
Yeah.
That did it for you. That it like motivated you. Where was?
The motivation really came from what I was seeing in terms of. Judge Higginbotham was working on a book called In the Matter of Color. And the premise of the book was that the history of this country, there are things, you talk about discrimination, you talk about racism, you talk about all these things, but you never really fully understand how some of those things are baked into the law. And the book really studied laws that were enacted in states at the federal level that really perpetuated certain biases, and so I was a research assistant for not that book, but he had a sequel to that book, and I was a research assistant for the sequel, and it really demonstrated the power of the law to drive social ills or social
Yeah,
benefit.
I get it.
Okay, and that really was it. I mean, now Judge Higginbotham was an incredibly impressive human being. He was actually on the short list to become a Supreme Court justice under President Jimmy Carter, but then President Reagan got elected, and so that was that. But he was an impressive man, and I kept in touch with him close to when he passed away. He was one of the first persons I called when I passed the bar exam in 1987, sorry. I remember he wrote me a handwritten note saying, "Congratulations, Barry, on passing this hurdle. You are on your way."
That's really cool.
Yeah, that was. And
So
I still have that note.
He was an inspiration to you that helped foster your passion.
Yeah, yeah. Second only to my parents.
That's pretty cool.
Second only to my
That's really
parents.
cool. And you know, like I could do a whole show with you just on how discrimination and racism is baked into our laws.
Yeah, yeah.
And how there are these laws that were enacted before the Civil War, but those laws still exist today. Am I correct?
Right. I mean, case in point, you've heard of Levittown in Nassau County. Levittown was built to house soldiers coming back from the war.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that people of color were not allowed to buy in Levittown. And up until recently, I thought that the reason for that was the developers they put that either.
The levies.
No, it was federal. It was a federal. The financing that was accessed to build Levittown said no blacks allowed. That was a federal regulation.
Wow. We're going only to the 40s and 50s.
Yeah. So
On Long Island.
yeah, exactly.
So when did that law change? Or how did one get around that law?
I mean, well, then don't access federal money, maybe, but I think it probably changed. That was probably taken out of federal regulations probably by the 60s. Probably
during
by
the Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
exactly.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
So do you have to work with laws like that still? Or not so much?
I don't. I mean, I do work with federal law in terms of my practice began. My practice that I'm engaged in right now began at the time that there was a lot of foreclosures on Long Island. Suffolk County, for 5 years running, was the #1 county in New York State for mortgage foreclosures. Out of the 62 counties in the state, Suffolk County was #1 for 5 years running.
Would that be after Black Friday?
Yeah, it was like 2008, 9, 10,
Oh,
11.
okay.
Yeah.
So you're not when you started in practice, but
Yeah,
10,
yeah.
11, 12 years ago.
Right.
Okay,
right,
gotcha.
Right,
okay.
right. So I started my practice in 2010.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
And so it was right in the thick of it.
Gotcha, I understand.
And so there were laws enacted at the federal level because this was all over the country.
Yeah.
The mortgage crisis. And so I accessed federal laws to help people, and then there were laws at the state level that did the same. And so yeah,
Right.
it's been as I said, laws can work for good and for ill.
Right.
No.
So after passion, there comes this grit. And in the grit is persistence and drive
Right.
and dealing with obstacles and challenges.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you describe to us like some of the obstacles that you had and how you dealt with those to overcome them to continue towards success? Is that too much? Is that too much of a mouthful?
Well, I mean, how much time do we have?
Till 7:30. To Corey and Mike walk in that door.
I mean, the answer to that question is different at the various levels. So, I mean, my path after law school was 10 years in 2 large law firms in New York City, then going to a big corporate environment. I worked at GE Capital, then going to in-house as general counsel of an internet startup in downtown New York, then becoming CEO of that international trade company's affiliate in the Middle East, commuting from Huntington to the Middle East every month, 3 weeks there, 1 week
Where in
home.
the Middle East were you going?
Bahrain. I was in Bahrain, but that's where my apartment was, that's where my office was, but I was traveling to Saudi, I was traveling to Dubai, I was traveling to Algeria. So that was one almost 2-year experience, and then coming home and then starting my practice. So in each of those stages, there were obstacles.
Can you
As
tell
a-
some stories?
I can give you lots of stories. As a young lawyer, when you get out of law school doesn't teach you how to practice law. Law school teaches you how to think. Law school teaches you how to reason. Law school teaches you how to understand, problem solve. Okay, but the practice of law itself, the nuts and bolts of practice, is learned after you get out of law school, and so there are a number of ways to get that training. You can get it from a law firm. You can get it from your local bar association. I was fortunate enough to get it from my law firm, but even there's always a struggle to, quote unquote, get the good work. You could be stuck at a Xerox machine, which is something that people don't use much anymore, but you could be stuck at a Xerox machine collating papers as a young lawyer in a large law firm, or you could be actually shadowing some senior lawyers as they do the work for the client. And that's, quote unquote, the good work. To be able to observe, to be able to participate on the margins, that's really where you get your training. And so that's a struggle, and there's only one way to do that, to get that good work, is to work hard. It's to be there early, it's to leave late, and just be, and never say no. Never say no. Can you do this? Of course. Of course. Even if you can't, you figure out how to get it done. You never say no.
Yeah, that's a common thread.
You never say no. So, and in that environment, that was the way that I overcame the struggle of getting the training that I needed to get.
Do you think there was any luck involved?
Of course.
So,
of course.
Some people say you make your own luck.
I would say that 80 to 90% of luck is made by the person.
Right.
Putting yourself in the right position, being in the right place, doing your homework about what it takes to get that being work or opportunity and so forth. So that's how you make your luck, by homework, by research, and just working hard.
Right.
You know, never shying away from working hard.
Right.
And it's that work ethic that will carry the day, because people see that and people appreciate that, and it will hold you in good stead. But it's hard work alone will not carry if you don't prepare yourself,
Right.
with education, with training, and so forth. And as I said, you know, you don't have to go to, you know, such and such school. There are lots of ways, especially now, especially with technology, to gain learning. And so technology is the great equalizer, right? You know, people don't have a ton of money to pay tuition, and they can get learning online, and that's wonderful.
Right. So I also have to think that there were a lot of failures involved too during those struggles.
Well, sure. I mean, when you go to a law firm, the expectation or the hope is that you rise to the level of partnership, and you basically become a partner at the law firm. And I tried to put myself in a position to be made partner, and it didn't work out. But I never stopped trying. I mean, I not only did I did the work, I worked hard, I never said no. I did recruiting for the law firms. I went to law schools and recruited people. I did that so well that I was put on the hiring committee, one of the few non-partners on the hiring committee, to vet young law students and give them offers to join the firm, and did, socialize and so forth and so on. But it's the vast majority of lawyers in law firms don't make partner. And so, you move on, and I went to another law firm, and that was a great experience because I got different experiences than I had at my other firm. All of the experiences, just so you know, I've been an attorney for 32 years, almost 33 years, and all my experiences as an attorney, I bring to my practice now.
Absolutely.
And it's it's interesting. I had lunch today with the director of the Heckscher Museum, and he was telling me about they want to expand. They want to expand the museum because they have a standing collection, but they cannot display it because of their space constraints. And he was saying, well, we have a problem because the town owns the land and the building, and they pay us a stipend. They help us out with our operating budget, but we raise the most of it. And I said, well, why don't you get grants to build the expansion, to construct the expansion? He said the problem is when we go to a grant a foundation, they say you don't own your building. Why would we give you money if you don't own your building? And I sat there for a second at the table, and I drew back from experiences that I had as a young lawyer 20 years ago. And it's the concept of a sale leaseback, where the town would sell the land and building to the museum to get that asset on its books.
Right.
The museum would lease it back to the town, so the town would have control. And then the town would sublease the space, not the land and the building, but just the space, because they don't need the land and the building. They already have it on their books. But sublease the space to the museum. So the museum has control of the property through the sublease. They have the ownership of the property, but the town has ultimate control because they have a lease that of the property.
Yeah.
And it's just structuring. It's just structuring. It's just transactional structuring. And it's what I used to do all the time when I was a young lawyer.
Right, but you never could have done what you did for Mr. Shantz. Mm-hmm. You could never have done what you did for him today if it wasn't the culmination of all those other experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I literally sat there and brought that, because I mean, in my current practice today, sale leasebacks are for, we used to do them for major transactions, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so it was from my past, but it just came right to the fore and said, that's the answer.
Right.
That's the answer.
I can't agree with that more. I mean, and a perfect example of that for me is where we are right now, what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. If I didn't have all these other experiences in this industry for the past 35 years, mm-hmm. I could never produce the quality of show that we're able to produce today.
Right.
Because every little wire you see on that tripod
mm-hmm.
came out of my brain from all the other experiences. That's all my experiences over the past 35 years, right on that tripod.
Wow.
I could never have thought of that
mm-hmm.
had I not had all those other experiences,
or
had all those failures
mm-hmm.
that taught me how to do this properly.
Right.
So I can't agree with you more.
I am a big believer, a huge believer in the adage, when one door closes, another opens.
Yeah.
Because when I left my first firm to go to the other firm, I joined a California firm out of law school, and it was the negotiating style was very different from my second firm, which was a dyed-in-the-wool New York heavy hitter law firm, such that my friends said, from my law school classmates said, Barry, wow, you're going from the frying pan into the fire with this new firm. But it was a new experience. And new training, and new the things that I learned there, people that I met there, the clients that I worked at the second firm, that's where they eventually invited me to join them.
Right.
And so it all works out. As long as you never give up, never stop growing. That's the thing. Never stop growing. Then opportunities will come.
At what point did you start giving? I mean, you help others. That's what your career is to help others. But at what point did you start giving to, I guess, pro bono, giving to organizations, and like when did that all happen? Because there's so many that you give to. I don't know how you have the time, but okay.
Immediately, ever since I've been a lawyer. When I was a lawyer at my first firm, I was on the board of directors of the Kips Bay Boys and Girls Club in the Bronx. I was on the board of directors for Children of Bellevue Hospital. I was on the board of directors of the Museum for African Art. And I was on the board of directors for the O'Neill Art Foundation, which is an art foundation on the Upper East Side. And all those board memberships came through clients that I work with who like me and I like them, and they invited me to work with those organizations and eventually join the boards. I just enjoy, like I said, I'm a people person. I enjoy helping, and I've been incredibly blessed, and so it's just natural. It's just natural.
It's something. It's almost. I find for me, giving my time is almost selfish, because it's kind of like, well, you think I'm doing a good deed for you, but in actuality, it's making me feel good.
Absolutely.
And so, is it me giving, or is it me giving selfish? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know which it is.
And
but-
and you know, it's also like bread on the water. I mean, doing good inevitably ends up in helping you do well.
I can't agree more. And the thing is, I could help you, but it'll come back to me that she did something really good for me that had nothing to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of the aura that you're putting out there,
Right.
You know, and it comes to you just as you're giving out. When I started my practice here in Huntington, as I said, the mortgage crisis was in full swing. And I joined the Suffolk County Bar Association, and at that time they were forming a group called the Foreclosure Project, and I'm one of the founding members. And it's basically Suffolk County lawyers giving of their time freely to counsel people facing foreclosure. And at the time, just at the time, New York State, and this is one of the Governor David Patterson, who succeeded Elliott Switzer. This is one of the signature pieces of legislation that he doesn't get enough credit for. He pushed through a law that basically mandated foreclosing banks to meet with borrowers and have an effort in an effort to modify their mortgages so that they could save their homes. And the foreclosure project at the Bar Association was built around that. So we would meet with people, explain to them the foreclosure project, and go to them to court to have those meetings, because the courts were administering that program with the banks. And you talk about feeling good. I mean, there's so many misconceptions about mortgage foreclosure. People would come to these meetings, the first meeting, thinking that, and they had just gotten their foreclosure papers, and thinking that when they go home that day, the locks are going to be changed and their stuff is going to be out on the street. And I used to keep I ended up keeping a box of tissues on my desk when I met with these people, because when I told them, no, this is a process that will take 2 to 3 years. You're not going to lose your home. And by the way, I'm here to help you save your home.
Right.
They burst into tears. Many times. I'm not even sometimes, many times. Men and women, because they were just, I mean, think about it. Your home is your number one asset for most of us. It is for me, and it is for most people. And the thought of losing it
and it's more than that. It's your home.
Yeah, it's your home. It's your kid's home.
Right.
So there's a lot built up, and so it just it made me feel really good.
That's really awesome. You know, and while a lot of people made very bad decisions during that whole era, a lot of people were hoodwinked into making bad decisions.
The mortgage crisis. The reason why the mortgage crisis was so severe in Suffolk County, it was a mix of things. It was our high taxes. It was aggressive lending, and it was also the economic downturn. A lot of people lost overtime, lost jobs, and so forth, particularly in the construction industry. But it was also some predatory lending. Yeah. There was that, and you know, also there were some people that borrowed money when they shouldn't have.
Right.
You know.
Or squeezed equity out of their
Yeah,
homes when they shouldn't have.
taking an equity loan and going on vacation, you know.
Yeah.
But in a good economic environment, that would have been okay. But it was a toxic mix.
Right.
It was that mix of things that came together and collapsed the market.
To me, it sounds like in addition to a lawyer, you were a therapist.
That's why they call it counselors at law.
There you go.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because particularly in the mortgage foreclosure defense area, they come in and they just spill their guts. They just want to. I mean, because think about it. What got them there? You know, the stress of losing a job, losing overtime, or an illness. They tell that story first. And as a matter of fact, that's part of the getting the modification, because one of the pieces of a mortgage modification application is the hardship letter.
Right.
And you got to craft that.
Right.
But you got to get it out of them.
So you started your own practice in 2010 during a recession.
Yeah.
How did you? That takes a lot of guts, first of all, to go into business during one of the worst recession since the Great Depression. Why did you do that, and how did you build it?
Okay. Well, remember, I was traveling. I was basically living in the Middle East, traveling back and forth once a month, and I was enjoying that. I loved it, but it was very hard on my family. I've got 4 children. My wife's a physician. She has her own practice, and I was away for 3 weeks out of every month. It was very hard on them. But I loved what I was doing over there, and it was going very well. It was going so well that the chairman of the board of the company, at a board meeting, said, "Barry, we love what you're doing. You're hiring people. We're getting traction, and we think we'd move even faster if you moved here permanently, with or without your family." This was end of 2009. And I said, it's time to find my replacement. And so they found my replacement. I transitioned to that person. This was September of 2009. And I came back. It was a very bad economic environment. And I looked around and I said, you know, whatever jobs are out there, you know, I don't want or I can't get. And so I said, you know, let me start by volunteering. And that's when I started with the foreclosure project.
Were you still, so you left your other job?
I left it, yeah.
And just became a volunteer?
And became a volunteer.
Okay.
I became a volunteer.
It's a gutsy thing.
Well, you know, I became a volunteer, and I saw every day, seeing lots and lots of people, counseling them, and so forth. And as time went on, and as people's fortunes improved, they would actually hire me to help them or help a friend or so forth. And so that's how the practice began. And then as I said, when I was at the law firms, I got involved in the community. I was getting involved in the community immediately in 2010. I joined the Chamber of Commerce and met lots of good people there. Those relationships turned into a contract with the town. I became an outside town attorney because, again, I was a lawyer for 20 years doing corporate work, doing real estate work, and so I was hired by the town to work with town attorneys and business people in town hall for real estate projects. And that went from there. I became counsel to some New York State agencies. So I now do work for the MTA and the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. So it all just built on itself.
Right.
But the key was staying out there. One of the biggest challenges for me, I am a solo practitioner. I've got paralegals, but I am the only lawyer. One of the biggest challenges for me today and every day is the marketing work mix. Because I know that my business comes mostly from referrals. People seeing me and recommending me to their friends or business colleagues. And so I have to stay visible, connected, but I've got to do the work too.
Right.
And that's another reason technology is wonderful, because my office is fully automated and I'm a big user of cloud space.
Yeah.
And so that helps a lot to enable me to do work anywhere.
A lot of people, live streaming has gotten very big because people feel more connected to a live stream than a pre-recorded video.
Right.
And what it does is it also shortens up the sales cycle. And that's one of the reasons why we do this show is because by repeating this over and over and over again, when you start to sell a product, people go, well, I know Cliff.
Right.
Because I see him every week. Right. And so you're right. Technology allows us to get closer to our customers.
Absolutely.
So you continue on. You became an overnight success over a period of 10 years, right? Because I love it when people
over a period
say
of
that,
30 years,
right?
Because like I said,
Because I love it when people say that. Oh, he's an overnight success. Yeah, with the other 30 years behind him.
That's right.
You have a question, Lori?
No, but I have a couple of comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So-
Was I just going on rambling?
What else is new? So
Shut
in
up, Frank.
listening to your story, I just wanted to say that you said, I think it was a professor had noticed something about you that was different and asked you to help him out or work in his office. Like, I think a lot of people who build their own success, either someone else notices them. I think your last guest said it was a teacher that said, and I think sometimes we don't give enough credit to teachers and professors
People who motivate us.
Right, that really, but that take the time to say,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, I noticed something a little different about you. Why don't you come with me and I'll help you, I'll teach you. And I mean, that could be life-changing for somebody.
That happened to my
And
brother.
Yeah.
I just think that,
and that's why I teach.
yeah,
That's
I
why
think teachers are so under,
I can't agree
I
more.
just, I mean, to,
And you're certainly not doing it for the money.
no, exactly. But
No.
they're not. They're under,
yeah.
I think teachers and nurses don't get enough money by far for all of the work that they
Right.
have to do. But, I think a shout out has to go to really good teachers that notice something about a student and say, there's something special here and I can help. And they ask for nothing back just for that child to be successful or that college student to be successful. Also another shout out to your family. I mean, you did volunteering while your wife worked, raising children. You had a lot of support, it sounded like, in the background,
absolutely.
which is also huge in
And
helping.
I forgot to bring that up, but part of entrepreneurialism is you need a good support structure to have the confidence to move ahead.
Yeah.
If you're alone or you get negative reinforcement, it makes it more difficult.
Right.
But when you get positive reinforcement and support, and you're doing something where you're putting yourself out there,
Right.
and your wife says to you, honey, you go for it, that helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm willing to bet my last dollar that your wife was doing that.
Absolutely. She did it this morning. I mean, it's just we are truly partners. I mean, and we're sort of unique because we're both small business owners. I've got my law practice, she has her medical practice, and so we're constantly batting back and forth issues that we're facing in our respective businesses. But I want to go back to teaching. I mean, that you're right. Teaching is very special, and it's another example of how when you put yourself out there and enable yourself to be open to opportunities, opportunities come. So I told you about how I had been traveling in the Middle East and was working doing international trade. Probably a year after I started my practice in 2011, a friend of mine knew the dean at Hofstra Law School, and they were at the time embarking on changing their curriculum to make it more practical skills, because too many lawyers did not have the opportunity that I had to go to a law firm and get that training. And so they needed to give some of that training in the law school curriculum. And so I was invited to create a practical skills course
Wow.
about international trade.
How awesome was that?
And that it was great. It was great because I brought in obviously readings and research, but also what I had been doing. And so I built this course, and I've been teaching it ever since at Hofstra Law School. I teach second and third year students every fall, and sometimes I get a business school student because it's a mix of business law, economics, and so and Hofstra has changed dramatically. It is now an international school.
I know.
They are
Yeah.
drawing from all over the world,
It's
and maybe it's
amazing.
because my class is called International Transaction Skills, and so I get a lot of the foreign students,
Right.
but it is really heartwarming, and it's great. It keeps me on my toes, but it's great. I received a note from a student, not from this past semester, but the fall 2017, and she said, "Your class was one of the best I've taken at Hofstra, and I'm going to use the stuff that I learned in your class for a long time." I was like, that's great.
It really went full circle for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
a professor picked you out,
yeah.
and now you're teaching a class,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and somebody wrote that letter. So you made a complete circle,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
such
yeah.
it's such a
I
nice
never
thing.
thought of it that way, but yeah.
And
yeah.
the same support he gets, that's getting instilled in his kids,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
that is going
Right.
to continue.
Right.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I have
I hope
no
so.
doubt.
I hope so.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So you give to all these organizations, you do all this legal work, you have 4 kids, and now you want to run for office? Are you crazy?
That's what my wife said. No, she didn't. I think it's the next step. I think it's the next step. I sent out a sort of a blast announcement yesterday, and as I said in that announcement, I think that all of my experiences has given me a 360-degree perspective. Having worked in town hall, having worked in the community, being a small business owner, raising children in Huntington, I've seen it all. I may not have done it all, but I've seen it all.
Right.
And I think I have something to give. Just tangibly, when I was working for the town on a number of real estate projects up until the end of 2017. Some of those projects are still, some of them are on the drawing board, some of them are in the ground and under construction, some of them are completely built. But I want to be a part of that again, and I want to. This is part of the main project is the revitalization of Huntington Station.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with the
Yes.
history of Huntington Station, but Huntington Station was a town on its own with supermarkets and barbershops and butcher shops and everything. And then came the 60s and urban renewal. And it was great enthusiasm. They were going to redo the downtrodden, they said, downtowns. And so they took a lot of land and they demolished whole swaths of Huntington Station. And there was a hotel right at the train station across the street, where what's now a parking lot. And so a lot was lost economically. And so the revitalization of Huntington Station is a very important project to Huntington at large, but also to Huntington Station, because it's been 50 years, and the promise of revitalization has been made over and over and over again over those 50 years. And this is the first real opportunity that we have to make it happen. And I want to help with that. And also, I mean, I'm chairman of the Huntington Housing Authority, which is a part of HUD, but it is also part of the town. And the mission of the Housing Authority is to identify, operate, and maintain affordable housing. We have somewhat of a unfunny joke in Huntington that affordable housing is not really affordable.
Right.
But that's the mission, and I want to bring my experience as a real estate lawyer, as a business person, to create some of that affordable housing. But we got to get creative. We have to be creative. I'm not looking to stymie development. My work on the chamber, I understand, business people and their motivations. But at the same time, we've got to have that balance of providing for those of us who do not have the means of others.
Yes. It needs to be urban renewal, not urban removal.
Right.
And
right. And
part
they
of-
only did the removal part.
What's that?
Hold on. So my parents, 56 years ago, bought a house in Huntington Station. I grew up in Huntington Station, and my parents still live there to this day in the same house that we grew up. And one of the reasons is because there is a great sense of community there.
Yes,
And
yes.
I mean, they really could live anywhere at this point, and they choose to stay in their
Yeah.
little tiny house and on their little tiny street. And
Right.
I would say probably 85% of the people on the street, unless they've passed away,
Right.
still
Still
live
live
there.
there.
Yeah, still live there.
Yeah.
Here's some of the things that I think about. I don't know how you address these, but yeah, we need affordable housing, but we also need retooling and retraining of those who are less fortunate than us. And so it's not just about giving them housing, it's about
Oh no.
retraining and helping retool them so that they can be more productive and they can live a better life. And I
Absolutely.
sometimes think that that's missing.
Yeah. The again, we keep going back to technology, particularly with there's so much job displacement happening with technology, such that retraining is really necessary at all levels, at all age levels. But
Yep.
but to your point, absolutely. And one of the components of the project that is still on the drawing board with the Huntington Revitalization was a community benefits agreement that I negotiated on behalf of the town, where the developer that had partnered with the town to build housing, hotels, and so forth in that swath of 110, the 110 corridor, agreed that the unions would partner and provide apprentice opportunities for young people. There is an apprentice program in the construction trades in New York City, very successful, draws a lot from the high schools. And what it is, it brings them in, they are basically they are apprentices, and over time it leads to full membership in a construction trade. And
That's really cool.
and that's worked out well here. A number of students, that program is administered out of the HORC, the Huntington Opportunity Resource Center.
Right.
A number of students have gone through it and are on their way to becoming
Right.
full union members in a particular trade.
I am so happy to hear that, and because the issue is very complex. There's a lot of layers to this onion. There's so many layers to this
Absolutely.
onion, and not just that, but also we're talking about support network. So if you have families that don't have a good support network,
Yeah.
the next generation doesn't have a good support network,
Right.
and then the next generation doesn't. So
right.
there's this holistic approach that I see that could be utilized
the
here.
village approach.
What's that?
The village approach.
Yeah, where it's about community.
Yeah. And before we went on, I mean the issue of, I don't want to get too deep, immigrants and the whole issues that we've been seeing, some of which we've been seeing in the town. A number of people, too many people don't have the support that you had, I had, my kids have in the home. And so what is the answer? They're tough luck? Or is there a role to play in the greater society, i.e. government, to help them, whether it's the town hall, whether it's schools,
Sure.
whatever. we need to shore up some of these folks so that they don't fall into the hands of those who would prey on them or have them prey on others.
That's right.
You know, and so that's that's something I want to bring to the table. I want to bring that to the table in town hall and have that discussion and figure out a way that we can shore up people to make sure that because the worst thing that you can take away from somebody, this is the absolute worst thing, hope. If they don't have hope for something coming down the pike, you know, some kind of opportunity, some kind of good, then what's the point?
That feeling of self-worth.
What's the point?
Yeah.
I mean,
You
it's,
have to have a feeling of self-worth.
and
Yeah.
bad things flow from that
Yes.
when they don't have hope.
Yes.
Bad
Yeah.
things flow from that.
I agree.
And so,
Completely
if that, I mean, I'm supremely blessed. My parents, my extended family. My father had 6 sisters, and I always remember, you know, they would come over and say, yeah, Barry, how are you? I said, well, school is really tough, or this or that. I know you can do it. I blew it off, but that sort of sunk in.
Yeah.
That sort of sunk in to have someone tell you, you can do it. I know you can do it. Even if they don't even know what it
What you have
is.
to do,
What
right.
it is.
It's
Just to
somebody
have
believing in you.
Just
It's
to have
somebody
someone, yeah.
believing
So
in
if you don't, and so I'm supremely blessed in that I had that. And so if people don't have that, where can they get it? Where can we give it? How can we give it to them?
Right.
How can we
I
give
think
it to
like
them?
what you said before, volunteering. I mean, I'm a big, but I do fundraisers and stuff like that. I think giving back is more, such a better feeling than
It's food
one
for
of the
your
best
it's food
feelings
for
is-
your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think volunteering makes people feel part of a group without it costing anybody anything, and all
Right.
you're doing is giving back. So I think volunteering for anything is such a, and you meet people that you would have never met before. It doesn't
Right.
cost you anything.
Right.
It's just time,
Right.
and you make connections with doing things.
Yeah.
I'm a big volunteer kind of thing.
You know, and people use the word networking, and that's very important to any business, particularly small businesses, because you need to continually expand
Yes.
your universe, your network. But people think that networking is a particular thing where you meet for breakfast or you meet for lunch.
Here's
or
my
you,
card.
Or here's my card. Here's my card. Blah, blah, blah. No, networking is just getting out there.
And relationship building.
And building relationships.
Absolutely.
You know, and there's no better way to build a relationship than working side by side
Right.
to paint
Yep.
a house,
Yep.
or or do a coat drive.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
or knocking on doors saying, "Vote for me." You know, and that's part of it. I look forward to that part of the campaign because I'm a people person, and I want to meet the people of Huntington. I want to hear about how they feel about our town. I mean, probably my unofficial campaign mantra is, why did you move here? And if you were born here, why do you stay? And the answer to those questions gives me my roadmap for governing.
Right.
Because it's the preservation of what makes this place special that should be the mission of any politician.
Yep.
You're a poet and you don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's it's you know why did you move here? I mean, I wasn't born here. We moved here. If you're born here, why do you stay? Just like your parents.
Right.
Why do you stay?
Right. They
What's
stay.
that?
It's just they love this street they live on. The people live there. My father, when it snows, my father will get his snowblower out. He'll do the whole street. He'll spend
Yeah,
4
yeah,
hours out there
yeah,
and do
yeah,
the
yeah.
whole entire street.
Yeah.
He does.
He does. He'll spend hours.
He's 80.
Yeah.
Then-
Really? God,
Yes, the
God
whole
bless
street.
him.
He'll get on his
Wow.
thing and
Does the
he'll do
entire
every-
block.
He does
Wow.
the entire, and there has to be 10 houses on each side.
Yeah.
I mean, they live on a little street, but he's out there for hours. It's just because
Yeah.
he's lived there
Wow.
55 years. The neighbors are family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
A few have passed away, and maybe 2 houses have, gone up for sale and sold. But the new people have moved in, and it's just a sense of community, and
Yeah.
they'll stay
Yeah.
until they're not here anymore.
Right.
Right.
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
So
That's great.
it's
That's
unique.
great.
You maybe need a little bit more of that. Send him over to my parents' block for a little while.
So Barry, I'm a young budding lawyer. I want to get ahead. Give me some advice.
Number one, join your local bar association. The Suffolk County Bar Association is very active in a number of ways. In one way that I continue to participate is they have this program called Bridging the Gap, which is a number of modules of areas of the law where seasoned practitioners teach young lawyers, because again, a lot of them don't have a phenomenon that you see today that you didn't see years ago was people coming out of law school and hanging up their shingle.
Yeah.
And practicing door law. Anything that comes in the door, that's what I do.
Right.
Okay. But they don't necessarily have some of the training or the skills, and so they go to the bar association. Is a great source for information, training, know-how. That's number one. Number two, volunteer. Volunteer, because volunteering is networking. Volunteering is relationship building. Volunteering is building your credibility as a good person.
Right.
And clients are drawn to good people. So networking, volunteering are critical. Are critical. And so and I don't mean just going to meetings and sitting there and reading over the agenda. Actually digging in.
Yeah,
Digging in. Participate. If a committee on the Chamber of Commerce is doing a panel discussion, be a part of that panel discussion. Or if the Veterans Committee is doing something for veterans, be a part of that. Work to bring veterans to the event. So really get into it, because the more you do, the more comes back.
Right.
The more comes back. So. Bar association for training and know-how, volunteering and general networking for
That's awesome.
The relationship building, which is critical.
So as we get closer to the election, will you come back?
Absolutely.
We want to help you stay more connected with the community.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
so
you.
if you want to come back here, and it can be more than once,
Okay.
and you want to come back here because you want to stay more connected to the community, we want to have you back here
I will hold you to
to
that.
help you get the word out.
Great. Thank you. Thank you
So-
very much.
Excuse me. I should have gone on mute. Frank, will you help too?
Sure.
Okay, good. Barry, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming in.
This has been
and,
fun. Thank
and
you very
like
much.
telling us all about your journey. Excuse my hacking.
No worries. No
Getting
worries.
over a cold.
No worries.
And we're looking forward to having you back. And next week, even though it's late because of a snowstorm we had, we're having our 1-year anniversary show.
Awesome.
And our guests are Maria and Diane
Oh, great.
from Digo.
Okay.
They are guests
Okay.
because they were our first guests on
Oh, is
the
that right?
show
Okay.
31 episodes ago.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we're looking forward to having them on. We're
That's
gonna goof
great.
around with them.
I'm good friends with both of them.
They're awesome.
And they've had a journey. They've had a journey.
They have.
They've had a journey.
They're so lovable. Everybody loves them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're
yeah.
going to be on next week. Unfortunately, Lori, you will not be here. You're going to be in California, sunning in California. No, you'll be working.
Sorry I'm missing it, but I have to go to California.
Yeah, we're going to miss you for the next couple of weeks.
And they're the perfect example of when you give, you get.
Absolutely.
They do so much work
They do.
for nothing.
Yeah.
To so many different organizations. It's incredible.
Sometimes money doesn't matter.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. True.
It just doesn't
true,
matter.
True.
So, but we do appreciate you coming on, and I'm really looking forward to having you back again as we get closer and following that journey to you becoming on the town board.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you. Much
and
appreciated.
we will see everybody next week when we have on Maria and Diane from Digo. And that's it. Frank, do you have credits to roll this evening?
Do you have credits to roll?
Okay, so then we will see you all next week. Bye.